The stars had always been a tapestry of quiet wonder, their light traveling silently across the void to whisper stories of worlds unseen. Among them, the planet Taylora shimmered like a jewel, its oceans turquoise, forests emerald, and skies painted in endless gold and violet. Its inhabitants, the Elari, were gentle, intelligent beings, their minds intertwined with the very essence of their planet. They had never known war, had never understood fear. That was about to change. From the darkness of space, a new presence approached. It moved not with curiosity but with purpose. The humans came, a species feared in whispers across uncharted sectors but rarely seen. They were relentless, adaptive, and without hesitation. To the Elari, the first human arrival was a marvel. A shining ship descending into their skies, reflecting the sun like a silver comet. And then, it became a nightmare. Commander Elias Thorne stood at the helm of the flagship Resolute, his eyes cold yet sharp. Behind him the crew moved with practiced efficiency, each action choreographed, each command executed without question. They were explorers, scientists, soldiers, but above all survivors. In the universe's endless dance of life and death, humanity had learned one truth: to survive. They would conquer, adapt, and, if necessary, destroy. The Elari greeted them with songs of light, melodies that bent and shimmered in the air, attempting to communicate peace. But Elias saw opportunity, not beauty. The humans did not understand harmony. They understood control. "Begin the scans," Elias ordered, his voice precise. "Assess resources, environmental stability, and population." The Elari marveled at the technology, the precision, the efficiency. And then the first seeds of fear took root. Cities that had thrived for centuries were systematically mapped, analyzed, and, in a way only humans understood, judged. They were soft, vulnerable. They had never seen humans before, but instinct whispered the truth. The humans were predators, and Taylora was their prey. One Elari, Liara, a scholar of the ancient forests, approached the humans with cautious curiosity. Her luminous wings trembled as she floated near the landing zone. "Why have you come?" she asked, her voice like a soft breeze through leaves. Elias regarded her silently, then spoke. "We come to claim what is useful. What survives, survives by choice. What resists must fall." Liara's light dimmed slightly, an emotion she had never known. Confusion, then fear, then an almost physical ache in her chest. Around her, the Elari tried to soothe themselves with the belief that these humans could not be as ruthless as rumors said. They were wrong. In the following weeks, humans established their outposts. At first, it was subtle. Mining operations for rare minerals, terraforming drones, adjusting the atmosphere for their own biology. But the subtlety soon gave way to necessity. Resistance arose not out of aggression but instinct. The Elari did not wish to fight, yet they could not ignore the intrusion. Elias observed the first signs of unrest and made a decision. If they will not yield, they will be removed. When human weaponry finally touched Taylora's forests, the Elari were unprepared. What they thought was impossible, the burning of living trees, the tearing apart of mountains, the roaring collapse of cities, was reality. The sky glowed red with flames. Rivers boiled and the winds carried ash like a funeral song across continents. The humans did not celebrate. They executed with cold efficiency. Liara stood on a cliff, her heart breaking with every strike. She looked down at the oceans, the forests, the ruined cities, and she whispered, "Why, when we offered peace?" Elias watched her, and for a moment something flickered in his eyes, something unspoken, buried beneath layers of training and survival instinct. But it vanished quickly. Humanity did not pause for sorrow. It never had, and it never would. Across the stars, word spread. Planets whispered in fear, trading tales of the humans who turned harmony to ash, of a species that thrived not merely on survival but on dominance. The galaxy had seen countless civilizations rise and fall, but none quite like humanity. And yet, somewhere deep inside the heart of this ruthlessness, a question lingered, unspoken, barely noticed even by those who wielded the weapons. Could humanity survive its own hunger for conquest, or would it, too, one day face a force beyond its understanding? Taylora burned. The Elari fled. The humans remained. And the galaxy for the first time understood the meaning of fear. Taylora's skies were choked with ash, the sun a dull, angry disk behind a veil of smoke. Fires raged in the forests and cities alike, their orange tongues reaching higher than any Elari had ever seen. Yet in the shadows of ruined towers and scorched plains, not all hope had died. Liara moved like a wisp through the chaos, her wings dimly glowing with residual energy. The humans had underestimated her people's resilience. Though their weapons could destroy cities, they could not crush spirit. A small group of Aelari had gathered in the remote valleys of Sereth, hiding, healing, and whispering plans of survival. "We cannot stop them with force," Liara said, her voice trembling yet resolute. "But we can endure. We can hide. We can learn." Her companion Joran, a warrior with wings black as midnight, clenched his fists. "Endure? How long, Liara?" "They can burn entire continents in a day. If we hide, we only delay the inevitable." Liara shook her head. "It is not delay, it is preparation. We will not fight them as they fight us. We will fight them as no one else can, through our minds, our unity, and our understanding of this planet. Talora itself is our ally." Far above, in orbit, the Resolute maintained its quiet observation. Commander Elias Thorne reviewed reports from the drones. The cities were gone. Mineral extraction proceeded faster than expected, and atmospheric adjustments were on schedule. Yet amid the efficiency, he noticed anomalies, fluctuations in energy patterns, small bursts of light moving with purpose. "Scan for anomalies again," he ordered. "These readings, they are not random." Lieutenant Mara, his tactical officer, frowned. "It could be remnants of their communication networks, Commander. Or," she hesitated, "resistance." Elias's lips pressed into a thin line. Resistance. The word carried a weight he rarely allowed himself to consider. Humans were meant to dominate, not be challenged. Track them. Observe them. Do not engage yet. Let them reveal themselves fully. On the ground, Liara's group had discovered an ancient cavern network beneath the mountains of Sereth. Here, Talora's natural energy flows converged in a lattice invisible to the human scanners. The Aelari could manipulate these currents, subtly influencing the environment, winds, plants, even minerals. It was a fragile power, but it was theirs. "This is why we survived," Liara said, tracing her fingers along a glowing crystal embedded in the cavern wall. "Even when the skies burn, the heart of this world beats." The humans had yet to realize the planet itself was not defenseless. They saw only surface destruction, not the deep, patient intelligence of Talora. Weeks passed. Skirmishes were rare, but incidents occurred. A mining drone malfunctioned inexplicably. A weapon system short-circuited without cause. Elias reviewed the damage reports with growing irritation. "Something is interfering with our systems. Find the source." Meanwhile, fear began to ripple among human colonies on neighboring worlds. Transmissions from Talora hinted at a defiance humans could not easily quantify. Entire fleets slowed in their expansion plans, hesitating at rumors of the ghosts of Talora who could disrupt even the most advanced technology. On one storm-tossed night, Liara meditated in the deepest cavern, connecting with the life force of the planet. She sensed the humans above, their minds sharp and calculating yet flawed in one way. An inability to comprehend the interconnectedness of life beyond survival. And for the first time she felt a spark of hope. They were ruthless, yes, but they were not invincible. Humans feared nothing except what they could not dominate. If Talora could remain unseen, untouchable, it could outlast them. Her thoughts were interrupted by Joran's urgent whisper. "They are landing near the northern plains. Ships, hundreds of them." Liara's heart sank. The humans were relentless. Yet beneath the fear a strange clarity emerged. If Talora endured, it would be because of cunning, unity, and a refusal to succumb to despair. And the humans, those fearsome, brilliant predators, had yet to see the true cost of underestimating life that refused to die. In orbit, Elias watched the northern plains, unaware that every scan he performed was subtly influenced, misdirected and delayed by Talora itself. He thought he controlled the battlefield, but the planet had secrets. The humans believed fear could rule all. Yet here, in hidden valleys and glowing caverns, the first embers of defiance were burning, quietly, patiently, and in ways humans could not yet destroy. For the first time, Elias felt a disquiet he could not name. It was not fear, it was curiosity, and it lingered, a whisper he could not dismiss. Across the galaxy, among the countless stars, fear spread, but not only from humans. Some beings began to wonder, what would happen if the humans met something that could resist? The war was far from over. Taylora was far from lost, and the story of humanity and the galaxy's first true challenge to its ruthless dominance was only beginning. The northern plains of Taylora, once lush with golden grass swaying beneath violet skies, were now a battlefield of silence and smoke. The human landing fleet stretched across the horizon, their metal hulls gleaming coldly, reflecting the scarred landscape. Yet despite their numbers, a subtle unease pulsed through the ranks, a whisper they could not place, a tension unseen in any prior conquest. Commander Elias Thorne stepped onto the plains, his boots sinking slightly into the ash-laden soil. Around him, drones hummed, scanning, analyzing, and mapping every inch of terrain. Reports came in fast. Anomalies detected, interference in drone navigation, energy fluctuations beyond standard planetary readings. Elias's jaw tightened. "Patch every feed," he said. "No interference goes unrecorded. I want solutions, not excuses." Lieutenant Mara hesitated, her fingers hovering over the controls. "Sir, the anomalies, they're not mechanical. Something intelligent is manipulating the systems. It's almost like the planet itself is alive." Elias paused. For the first time in decades of conquest, he felt a weight in his chest. Not fear exactly, but a prickling awareness that control might not be absolute. "Humans survive because we adapt," he said finally. "We will find it. We will break it. That is all that matters." Beneath the surface, Liara and her small band of Aelari moved with precision. Every attack, every sabotage was deliberate yet hidden, an echo of Taylora's own will. They did not seek blood but survival. Even as human weapons carved scars into the earth, their subtle manipulations caused drones to malfunction, weapons to misfire, and communications to distort. "Every step they take is predictable," Liara whispered, tracing her fingers along the glowing crystals of the cavern network. "They see power only in destruction, not in patience. That is our advantage." Duran's wings trembled as he watched from a high ridge. "Do you truly believe we can outlast them? Their ships, their firepower, we are nothing by comparison." Liara's eyes glimmered with quiet determination. "We are everything they do not understand. And sometimes that is enough." On the plains, the humans pressed forward. They burned forests, flattened hills, and reshaped rivers to suit their needs. Yet with each act of domination, they began to feel the strain, not from the aliens themselves, but from the subtle sabotage that disrupted their rhythm. Drones would veer off course for no reason. Mining equipment would halt unexpectedly. Even the human fleet, a testament to centuries of engineering, faltered in the invisible hands of Taylora. Elias felt frustration like a physical weight. Every plan executed flawlessly in theory faltered in practice. He barked orders, recalculated strategies, and pushed his crew harder. And yet a creeping realization began to gnaw at him. This was no ordinary planet, no ordinary enemy. One night, under a sky lit by streaks of green aurora, Elias walked the northern plains alone, surveying the devastation. The silence of the burned landscape felt unnatural, almost watchful. In the distance, a faint shimmer of light flickered, too deliberate, too synchronized to be natural. He froze. Curiosity, sharp and unwelcome, pierced through his control. Humans feared nothing, but what they did not understand they observed with an intensity bordering on obsession. Elias extended his hand toward the shimmer, almost instinctively, as if reaching for a puzzle he could not yet solve. And in that moment he sensed it, the first whisper of defiance that could not be destroyed by fire or steel. Meanwhile, the Aelari consolidated their hidden forces. They used the cavern networks to anticipate human movements, to channel energy flows that disrupted mechanical systems, and to protect their wounded. The scars of battle were visible, yet their spirits paradoxically grew stronger with each challenge. They had learned an important truth. Humans could burn cities and forests, but they could not extinguish unity, intelligence, and hope. Back in orbit, Mara approached Elias with concern etched into her face. "Sir, the planet is responding, not like a threat, but like a living organism. Every strike we take is countered, every operation disrupted. We are being watched and guided." Elias's eyes narrowed. For decades he had stared into the void, faced hostile worlds and crushed civilizations. Nothing had ever questioned his control. Not machines, not nature, not even fear itself. And yet here on Taylora something did, something unseen, intelligent, and resilient. "They will break," he said finally, almost to convince himself. "All things break. We only need time." But time was no longer entirely in his hands. The humans could destroy cities, but they could not destroy patience, cunning, and the subtle power of a world that refused to die. Across the northern plains, a quiet war of wills had begun. A battle without explosions, without visible casualties, yet with stakes higher than any human mind could fully comprehend. Liara whispered into the cavern winds, her voice carrying the resonance of hope. They will come. Let them. But Taylora will endure because we endure. The plains trembled, not from weapons, but from the awakening of a force the humans had never accounted for. The determination of life, cleverness, and survival. And somewhere in the shadow of the towering ships, Elias felt the first real shadow of doubt. The galaxy had seen ruthless humans conquer worlds before. But on Taylora, humans faced something more dangerous than fear. The quiet, unyielding resistance of a world that would not bow. The northern plains were a graveyard of twisted metal and ash, yet the Aelari moved unseen, ghost-like through the ruined cities. Liara's group had grown cautiously, recruiting others who had survived the initial onslaught. They carried no weapons in the human sense, only the knowledge of their planet and the will to protect it. Every human advance was met with disruption, subtle and precise. A supply convoy would collapse into a sinkhole. A bridge would collapse mid-crossing. A communication array would fail exactly when it was needed most. Each setback forced Commander Elias Thorne to confront something he had never experienced: imperfection in the face of control. "Report," Elias barked from the Resolute's command deck, his gaze sharp, scanning the chaotic feeds. Lieutenant Mara hesitated. "Sir, the planet's anomalies are growing. The energy fluctuations are stronger, more intentional. They're almost predicting our moves." Elias's jaw tightened. "Prediction is not control. Continue operations. Break through the interference." Yet as the days stretched into weeks, even the humans, trained, ruthless, and adaptable, felt fatigue. Not from the physical strain, but from the tension, the constant uncertainty. In their minds, every malfunction whispered doubt. Something beyond technology, beyond brute force, was working against them. And Elias, whose life had been defined by dominance, could not ignore the gnawing question. Could humans meet resistance that could not be crushed? On the ground, Liara sensed the strain in the humans and sought to amplify it. Her connection with Taylora allowed her to manipulate small details. Gusts of wind that extinguished fires, sudden tremors beneath heavy machinery, electromagnetic pulses that scrambled sensors. Humans were precise, but they were also arrogant. They assumed mastery over matter and fire. Yet here, their control faltered at the hands of a living world. Joran watched as human soldiers marched into an open field, only to have the terrain itself shift subtly beneath their feet. "They are brilliant," he murmured, awe and fear mixed in his voice. "Every move we anticipate, they respond with force." Liara's eyes softened. "Yes, Joran, but every move they make is slowed by what they cannot understand. Every step forward carries frustration and doubt. This is our weapon." Despite their ruthlessness, humans were not immune to conscience. Mara, the tactical officer, had begun questioning the morality of their campaign. The reports of destroyed cities, the cries of survivors, and the subtle signs of intelligent resistance were wearing on her. For the first time, she wondered, were they conquerors or destroyers? And if humans were unstoppable, at what cost did their victory come? Elias noticed the hesitation in Mara. "Do not falter," he said sharply. "Humanity survives by certainty, not sentiment. Focus on the mission." But even he could not ignore the subtle unease creeping through his crew. Fatigue was not the enemy, but doubt. The uncomfortable awareness that domination was not absolute, that some forces could resist, and that even humans could falter in the face of something truly unknown. In the midst of this, the Aelari prepared a bold move. They would not attack openly, yet they would demonstrate their power in a way humans could not ignore. Liara coordinated the channels beneath Taylora's surface, focusing all her energy into one converging point, the central northern valley, where human forces were concentrated. The earth trembled beneath the fleet, small fissures widening into cracks that swallowed machinery. Towers of ash rose like silent alarms. Drones plummeted from the sky, their signals scrambled beyond recognition. The humans realized almost too late that the battlefield itself had turned against them. Elias gritted his teeth, watching the chaos unfold through his viewport. For decades, humans had shaped worlds, controlled environments and subdued civilizations. Yet here on Taylor, a mastery was slipping through his fingers. He did not fear death nor loss, he feared something more foreign: unpredictability. Mara approached him quietly, her voice low but firm. "Sir, maybe we are not meant to conquer everything. Some things resist for a reason. Perhaps Taylora is one of them." Elias turned to her, anger flashing in his eyes, but beneath it lingered a flicker of uncertainty. "Perhaps," he said finally, his voice low. "Or perhaps we have yet to understand it." Liara, from her hidden vantage, watched Elias and the humans with a mixture of awe and caution. She understood something that the humans could not yet see. Dominance might destroy, but survival required something deeper: patience, wisdom, and connection. And for all their ruthlessness, humans were creatures of extremes, and extremes had a price. As the day ended, the northern plains were scarred, the human fleet shaken, and the Elari emboldened. The first true confrontation had concluded, but the war had only begun. Each side had felt the cost, humans in frustration, aliens in fear, and the universe watched quietly, wondering if humanity's spirit could survive the challenges it had never encountered before. Above the flames, Liara whispered into the wind, "We endure. That is our strength. They may burn the forests, the cities, and the skies, but they cannot burn what is eternal." And somewhere in the human command deck, Elias felt the first tremor of respect, not for Taylora itself, but for the force of life that refused to be extinguished. The galaxy, it seemed, would never underestimate humans, or the worlds that refused to bow, again. The northern plains had become a theater of tension, the silence between attacks more suffocating than the battles themselves. The humans, masters of strategy and destruction, had assumed that sheer firepower could compel obedience. Yet Taylora was proving otherwise. Commander Elias Thorne convened a council aboard the Resolute, the hum of engines vibrating beneath his feet. Every report detailed another minor failure: drones sabotaged by unseen forces, sensors scrambled in impossible ways, heavy machinery inexplicably disabled. His crew's confidence was cracking. Reports indicate that the Elari are not only surviving, but actively manipulating the battlefield, Lieutenant Mara said, her voice steady but urgent. "They are predicting our moves before we make them. The planet itself is assisting them." Elias's eyes narrowed. "A planet does not fight. The Elari fight. Find the command points. Neutralize them. Every delay costs lives. Every hesitation costs victory." Yet even as he spoke, another anomaly erupted on the plains below. A surge of energy, concentrated and precise, toppled a convoy of transport ships. The earth itself shifted beneath their feet, and human soldiers fell as if the land itself had rejected them. Liara observed from the safety of the northern valleys. Her wings shimmered faintly with energy drawn from Taylora's veins. Every pulse, every gust of wind, every tremor was carefully orchestrated. The humans believed in power through destruction, but power through understanding was invisible, insidious, and far more enduring. "We cannot let them advance," Liara whispered to Joran, her voice steady, fierce. "Not for our people, not for the planet. We will show them that life adapts. Life survives." The first open confrontation began when human ground forces descended upon the Central Valley, confident in their overwhelming superiority. Tanks rolled across the ash, soldiers advanced with automatic precision, and drones hovered, scanning relentlessly. Then the valley rose against them. Trees bent unnaturally, roots curling and gripping machinery like serpents. Geysers of energy erupted from fissures in the earth, throwing soldiers and machines into chaos. Drones collided mid-air, systems frying in bursts of electromagnetic disruption. The humans were stunned. Taylora itself seemed alive, responding to every calculated move. Elias watched through the viewport, fury mingled with fascination. "Contain them," he barked. "Do not let instinct override strategy. Adjust, adapt, dominate." Yet adaptation was not enough. Each strike brought diminishing returns. Every attempt at control was met with resistance that defied logic. The humans had faced wars before, faced enemies that wielded fire and steel, but never something that was both everywhere and nowhere, subtle yet unstoppable. Amid the chaos, Mara saw something she could not ignore. "Sir, they are teaching us. Not to destroy, but to understand. Their resistance forces us to consider factors we have never accounted for. Elias's jaw tightened. For decades, humans had conquered through fear, through ruthlessness, through absolute mastery. Yet here the limits of human dominion were laid bare. His hands gripped the railing as the northern plains quaked beneath him. On the ground, Liara led her people through the conflict with a mix of courage and intelligence. Every movement was deliberate, every strike precise yet non-lethal. She sought not to annihilate, but to survive, to prove that life in its complexity could endure against force alone. Joran's voice trembled as he watched the humans falter. They are relentless, yet they are learning. We are teaching them to hesitate, to doubt. Yes, Liara said softly, and hesitation is as dangerous to them as any weapon. The humans regrouped, battered, but unbroken. Elias's mind raced, not with fear, but with a rare unfamiliar awareness. Mastery over matter was not mastery over life. His species had always relied on dominance, yet dominance alone could not account for subtlety, for patience, for resilience. The first major clash ended with no victor. The humans retreated temporarily to regroup, their pride bruised but their resolve intact. The Aelari had won a battle not through sheer force, but through intelligence, strategy, and the bond they shared with their world. Night fell over the northern plains, and for the first time, Elias allowed himself a moment of reflection. He realized that ruthlessness alone could not guarantee success. Humans had survived and thrived because of adaptability, ingenuity, and determination. But even those qualities had limits when confronted with an enemy that understood the value of subtlety, patience, and life itself. Liara, beneath the aurora-streaked sky, whispered to the winds, her voice carrying both hope and resolve. We endure. They learn, and in endurance there is power beyond fire and steel. Across the galaxy, news of Taylora's resistance began to ripple through other civilizations. Humans were feared, yes, but now even they faced the recognition that some forces, some worlds, could resist, adapt, and survive in ways beyond human expectation. The war was far from over. Yet in the first clash, humans and Aelari alike learned a lesson that would shape the battles to come. Power is not only in destruction, but in understanding. Survival is not only in force, but in resilience. And sometimes the fiercest warriors are not those who strike hardest, but those who endure longest. The northern plains lay in uneasy silence. Human forces had withdrawn for repairs, recalibration, and reassessment. For Commander Elias Thorne, it was the first time in decades of command that he truly felt the weight of uncertainty. His species thrived on dominance, on ruthlessness, yet Taylora had shown that mastery over a world was never absolute. Inside the Resolute, Mara confronted Elias with quiet urgency. Commander, we are facing resistance unlike any we've seen. The planet itself aids them, and the Aelari are organized, strategic, and adaptive. We cannot win by force alone. Elias stared at her, the shadows of the cabin reflecting across his angular features. Then we adapt, he said, though a flicker of doubt lingered. Humans always adapted. But here adaptation required more than technology. It required understanding, empathy even. Qualities long considered liabilities in the crucible of survival. Meanwhile, Liara convened a council of her people in the hidden northern valleys. The survival of Taylora relied on unity, yet she sensed growing tension. Some Aelari wished to strike the humans with all their power, to end the threat once and for all. Liara shook her head. Destruction will only make them more ruthless. Our strength is subtlety, patience, and understanding. We survive not by fighting blindly, but by outlasting. Joran's black wings twitched. And if they do not relent? If they strike again with the full force of their fleets? Liara's eyes, luminous in the dim cavern light, met his. Then we endure. That is our choice. That is what makes life stronger than fire. On Taylora's surface, both species were evolving. Humans were forced to reconsider tactics. No longer could they rely on sheer firepower. Engineers worked tirelessly to adapt technology, while commanders revised strategies in real time. The humans learned to anticipate unpredictability, a task as exhausting as it was humbling. Elias walked among his crew, observing their exhaustion, their subtle doubt. Even the most disciplined soldiers carried tension, the mental toll of encountering an enemy that could not be fully understood. For all their ruthlessness, humans were not immune to the weight of moral reflection. Some questioned the destruction they had wrought, others the purpose of their conquest. Mara approached him again, her voice low. "Sir, I think we've underestimated them. But perhaps there is another way, a way to achieve control without annihilation. They are intelligent, adaptable, resilient. Maybe our survival depends on understanding that, not destroying it." Elias considered her words. For decades, his creed had been simple: dominate, survive, prevail. Yet Taylora challenged that creed. The humans had faced countless wars, yet none had forced them to confront the consequences of overreach. Perhaps survival, he realized, demanded more than fire and steel. In the hidden valleys, Liara coordinated subtle countermeasures. She taught her people to anticipate human tactics, to manipulate terrain, energy, and the flow of life itself. Each move was deliberate, defensive, but intelligent. Her goal was not vengeance, but survival, and to prove that life, when united and aware, could resist even the most ruthless force. One night, as green auroras danced across Taylora's sky, Liara and Elias glimpsed each other's determination, not directly, but through the consequences of their actions. Every tremor, every misfire, every disrupted drone was a conversation between predator and prey, between conqueror and defender. The humans were learning limits. The Alari were learning tactics. And in the silent reflection between battles, the first seeds of mutual respect emerged, though neither species would yet admit it. Elias understood, deep in the recesses of his mind, that some forces could not be conquered by ruthlessness alone. Liara sensed that humans, despite their destructiveness, carried a brilliance that could not be ignored. Across the northern plains, tension rippled. The humans prepared for renewed engagement, more cautious and calculated than ever. The Alari strengthened hidden networks, anticipating strikes with precision. Both species were adapting, evolving, learning not just to fight, but to survive in a conflict that demanded ingenuity, patience, and courage beyond the battlefield. As the aurora shimmered overhead, Liara whispered to her people, her voice carrying calm yet fierce determination. "The humans are powerful, but we endure. That is the lesson. That is the strength. That is what cannot be destroyed." Elias, in the cold metal corridors of the Resolute, stared at the northern plains through the viewport. For the first time, he wondered if survival demanded more than conquest. If ruthlessness was humanity's greatest weapon, perhaps restraint, understanding, and adaptability were its truest strengths. The war was far from over. Yet in these shadows of choice, both species realized something profound. Survival was not merely the triumph of power, but the mastery of understanding, patience, and the courage to endure. The northern plains had become a place of reckoning. Fires still burned, smoke curling toward the violet sky, yet beneath the devastation, life endured. The humans, battered but unbroken, advanced cautiously, their fleets precise and calculated. They had learned much, but not enough. Commander Elias Thorne stood on the Resolute's bridge, staring at the scarred terrain below. Weeks of engagement had forced adaptation, innovation, and reflection, yet one truth remained. Taylora was not merely a planet to be conquered. It was alive, patient, and intelligent. The humans had underestimated it, and its people. Lieutenant Mara approached him quietly, the tension in her eyes mirrored in the flickering displays around them. "Sir, we cannot simply destroy it. Every strike meets resistance. Every advance falters. This is not a world we can dominate like the others." Elias clenched his fists. For decades he had relied on ruthlessness to prevail. Yet here he faced a new equation. Power without understanding was not victory. His mind, trained for conquest, wrestled with a realization he could not dismiss. Some forces could not be crushed. Some spirits would not break. On the ground, Liara's forces moved with precision and courage. Every fissure, every gust of wind, every subtle shift in energy was orchestrated to protect, to endure, and to teach. The humans' weapons were formidable, yet the Alari had learned to anticipate, to outmaneuver, and to survive. Their unity and connection to Taylora amplified their strength beyond anything technology could match. As human forces approached the central northern valley, they were met with a phenomenon no scanner could fully interpret. The valley itself seemed to rise, reshaping terrain, shifting energy, and guiding the humans into channels where their machines faltered. Tanks sank into soft ground, Drones collided midair and automated weapons jammed inexplicably. It was not magic nor luck. It was strategy, intelligence, and life itself acting in unison. Elias realized with a mixture of awe and frustration that control was no longer absolute. "We adapt," he muttered almost to himself. "We learn or we fail." Liara watched from the cavern ridges, her heart steady but fierce. "We do not seek to destroy them," she said to Joran. "We seek to endure, to show that life in unity is stronger than fire and steel. Let them see that some things cannot be conquered by force alone." The humans pressed forward, each step slow and deliberate, yet every advance met resistance that challenged their assumptions. Mara's observations, shared in hushed counsel with Elias, began to shift strategy. Understanding, patience, and calculation replaced brute force as the human path forward. In a pivotal moment, Elias ordered a ceasefire, the first act of restraint in Taylora's campaign. He did not trust the Aelari yet, nor did he fear them in the traditional sense, but he understood now that survival demanded more than destruction. Ruthlessness could win battles, but endurance won wars. Liara stepped into the open, her luminous wings catching the light of distant fires. She faced the humans without weapons, without threat, yet with unwavering courage. Elias watched, and in that instant a silent understanding passed between them. The humans could destroy cities, burn forests, and crush the weak, but life that resisted, that adapted, that endured, could not be extinguished by fire alone. Across the northern plains, both species paused. The humans had strength, technology, and ruthlessness. The Aelari had unity, patience, and the living intelligence of a planet. And for the first time, they both recognized the limits of absolute power. The battle had ended, not with a triumphant explosion, nor with surrender, but with recognition. Humans would continue to explore, to adapt and to dominate where they could. But Taylora endured. Its forests, its skies, its rivers, and its people remained alive, defiant and unbroken. Elias turned to Mara. "Perhaps ruthlessness is not all that defines humanity," he said quietly. "Perhaps the true strength is in knowing when to fight, when to adapt, and when to endure." Liara whispered to her people, a soft hum carried on the wind. "We endure. That is the truth. That is the strength. And as long as we endure, we are never defeated." The northern plains were scarred, yet alive. Humans and Aelari alike had faced the limits of power and learned the value of patience, unity, and understanding. Across the galaxy, whispers spread, not just fear of humanity, but awe at its resilience, its adaptability, and its capacity to recognize when true victory required more than dominance. In the end, the fires burned low, the skies cleared, and life continued. Taylora survived, humans adapted, and somewhere between destruction and endurance, both species glimpsed the deeper truth, that survival, intelligence, and resilience were the ultimate weapons. The galaxy would remember Taylora, not as a world turned to ash, but as a world that taught even the most ruthless species that true power lies not in fire alone, but in the unyielding spirit to endure. And humanity, ever relentless, ever adaptable, had met its first opponent that could not be conquered by force. Yet it survived, as it always had, and so the story of humans and Taylora became legend, whispered among the stars as both a warning and an inspiration.